Muslim said, why would God punish my father and your father? They never received a warner, a messenger. Is God that unjust? The hadith says, well, they should have found it within their hearts to believe in God. But this contradicts the ayah in the Qur'an, the verse in the Qur'an that says in Surah Al-Isra, ayah 15, verse 15, وَمَا كُنَّا مُعَذِّبِينَ حَتَّى نَبْعَثَ رَسُولًا. I, God, will not punish someone if he or she has not received a messenger. That's justice. God hold you accountable for something you do? No. And if you don't, why would God hold you accountable for it? So this hadith is there, and Muslims accept it. The next one, addressing all the hadiths available about any given topic. What so many Muslims do, unfortunately, it takes one sentence to make a ruling out of it, even if there are 20,000 hadiths that are exactly on the opposite side. So when you do hadith study in the right way, put all the hadiths together about one topic. Then you will see how they fall into place. Don't read one sentence and think that's Islam. What's next? Try to reconcile between all hadiths, sort of what I mentioned now. Let me give you some examples. I have a lot of examples now that will make you laugh. You know that it's, you know, I'm sure if Salihah here wants to go to the cemetery, and Salihah is the best, but for those who don't know Salihah is the best student, because she's from California only now. Salihah wants to go to the cemetery to pray for someone of her relatives who died. Many imams would tell her, you cannot do that. Why? Because the hadith says, the Prophet says, don't go to graveyards for women. So you read this sister online, and these Muslims are crazy ones. So Fox News is right. And yes, there is a hadith like that, but can we understand the context? The context that the Prophet had prevented specific women from going to a specific funeral, because when they ended up at the cemetery, they pulled hair, they, tore their clothes into pieces, hit and bit and did all kinds of bad stuff at the cemetery. So instead of being a peaceful experience of learning, it became screaming and shouting and yelling. And the Prophet said, don't go. If that's why you are going, don't go. So later when these women learned their lesson, that you don't go and beat and tore your clothes into pieces, but go to learn from the moment of death. The Prophet said, كنت قد نهيتكم عن زيارة القبور ألا فزوروها. I have prevented you from going to cemeteries. Now go and visit them. So what happened with some problems with some Muslims' minds? They read only that hadith, meaning that specific story, but not the whole narrative. And they make a ruling out of it. So you need to take and reconcile all the hadiths together and put them in the context, as we say, number for understanding the context of that hadith. And the beautiful hadith in Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim, where Aisha told the Prophet, and if we were to visit the graveyards, what should we say? So the Prophet says, say, Assalamu alaikum ahl diyari min al-mu'mineen wal-muslimin wa yarhamu. You know, so he taught the women what the prayers even to do. He never said no, except with that specific experience. So Muslims do that all the time, unfortunately. Distinguishing between the changing method and the fixed values. What do I mean by that? What matters in the study of Qur'an and Hadith both is the values. Now, how do you come about those values? The method is different, based on circumstances, based on realities, based on capabilities and abilities. And therefore, one may change one's perspective of how to understand that hadith. Give an example. The Prophet said, and did he say that? Women must not travel alone without a mahram, a male protector. It's authentic, sahih hadith. So what is the illah? What is the reason for him saying that? Was the illah the reason to tell women to sit at home, or something else? We know from the stories of the Prophet that women did travel with him. They traveled within and between the tribes around Medina without mahram. So what was it about? Ulama, the scholars said, women cannot travel outside into a distance in the desert where their livelihood will be in danger and most likely will be killed and raped. So the Prophet, is he saying them to travel? Or is he saying be careful of what could happen to you? So, in the 21st century where your mother will drop you off at the airport, or your father, and you are on a plane with 200 people, someone picks you up on the other side and go to a hotel and everyone's around you. What do you say about that? Some Muslim scholars say, of course not. That's also wrong. They take the method, but not the value. You're supposed to take the value, and the value determines what the method that you have to use. So the statement of the Prophet has to be understood in terms of the value and in terms of the illah, of the reason of why he thought that way. Why do you think that way? Because in another hadith, the Prophet told us exactly why women should not travel alone. He said, so that they may not be attacked. So he did tell us why. So if attacking can no longer happen, the method is also changing. See where I'm coming from? There's so many examples about this that there's no time really to mention here. Maybe one example is, Zakat al-Fitr, for the non-Muslims here, those who fasted the month of Ramadan, at the end of Ramadan, you're supposed to give a specific charity called Zakat al-Fitr. You give it to the poor in your neighborhood. And the Prophet, peace be with him, told people that Zakat al-Fitr can be given from wheat, actual wheat, dates, raisins, or rice. Now, so many Muslim scholars, based on a very well-known statement made by Imam Abu Hanifa 700 years ago, or more than 1,000 years ago, Imam Abu Hanifa says, these great ingredients, people could deal with them and handle them in the right way at the moment. But now, give anyone wheat, they would know nothing. They would not know how to deal with it. They would throw it in the trash. and even with people who don't know how to cook, like rice or this or that, Imam Abu Hanifa said, the goal of the Prophet, the value, is that what he himself said at the end of that hadith, إغنوهم عنها في يوم المسألة. The idea is to save them from asking for help for extra things on the day of the Eid. Okay, which is easier? For someone, me, Yahya Hendi, to give me dates that I may not eat because I'm diabetic, I'm not, but if I am, or give me $10 and let me choose what to buy with those $10 to help me, because I know what I want and what I don't want. So with Imam Abu Hanifa on, most Muslim scholars say, of course we give money. So now the Imams usually stand up halfway in Ramadan and say $10 or $11 or $12. But there are still people who argue that we have to give these things in a specific. That might be put to use if you are in Africa. And I have seen that in Africa. In Africa you give them wheat, they know how to use it. I saw it with my own eyes. But you give it to my wife, give her wheat. She will strike me 10 times and rightly so. Yeah, what are you doing? Are you making fun of me? So what I'm saying here is you study the value and the method could change. So the value is fixed to protect people, to help people. But the method changes. A lot of the statements of the Prophet were about methods that meant something and made sense to him in the time, at the time, in Arabia in the 7th century in Medina, but many of which would not make sense in the 21st century in Washington, D.C., or in Pakistan, or in Saudi Arabia. People have changed. People have developed. So this is what this is talking about. The next one is, and we'll finish with this, inshallah, slide. Distinguishing between the changing, number 6, differentiating between the الحقيقة والمجاز. Between, what's حقيقة, what majaz?
Metaphor.
Hmm?
Metaphor.
Metaphoric, and the opposite of metaphoric would be
Literal.
literal. So we need to distinguish between that. The Prophet himself used a lot of metaphors in his speeches, a lot of them. Actually, Arabic language, for those of you who know Arabic, is filled with metaphors, beyond what you can imagine. And if you don't know these metaphors, you end up with the wrong interpretations about just about everything in hadith material. So this is what this is talking about. I just want to mention also one more thing here about method and value. The Prophet said, for example, that if he were to order us to do anything before the prayer, is to do what? Is to do what? To use the miswak. For those of you who don't know what the miswak is a piece of wood from a specific type of tree that existed in Arabia. If you take the skin out of that trunk or smaller branch, you can easily, I don't know how to describe it, make it look like a toothbrush. You can easily fray it, yes. So he said, if I were to order you to do anything, I would order you to use miswak before and after every prayer. So some people take that literally to say, we have to carry that piece of wood in our pockets for every time to make the Prophet happy. Was the Prophet telling us to use the miswak? Or was he telling us about the value of being clean in your teeth? Obviously, it is about being clean, not about using that specific miswak. So this is what I'm talking about. People sometimes take these things literally, and they forget the value. They take the method and forget the value. The Prophet ﷺ once spoke about the need to lick all the food you have on your plate. I'm not doing it, but I'm in trouble. And he said, ﷺ, the Prophet, none of you knows what is the most blessed part of your dish. It could be that part you leave behind. So some people take that literally to mean, and I have seen people doing it. I have seen it. Guys, at the time of the Prophet, there were no forks and knives and spoons. There were no methods that we have now. Is the Prophet telling us we have to lick? Or is he telling us, put in your plate only what you need? Don't waste. And don't waste. Is he telling us to be conservative about how we use things and how not to learn to throw things? Isn't that the value? So people take literally these statements from the Prophet and forget the value that he was really trying to tell us about. I forgot where I was, in what Arab Muslim country. Forgot. And in the bathrooms, and instead of having water to clean after yourself, they had stones to clean themselves from behind. Why? But the hadith says that the Prophet used stones sometimes to clean himself. I said, what is the value and the method? Imagine yourself in the desert of Arabia in 629. In the desert, no water, no nothing. You just go to the bathroom. Shouldn't you clean yourself? And you don't have water. The only thing you have is a piece of stone. It makes sense. So the Prophet spoke about istijmar, it's called istijmar. So I asked the people in that hotel, motel, and he said, brother, we do things by the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and this is what the Prophet did. I tried for half an hour to convince him the idea is the cleanliness, it's not the using of stones. I'm serious. And that's what I'm talking about. When the Prophet said, peace be with him, إلزمها فإن الجنة تحت قدميها. إلزمها meaning be as close as possible, for Jannah lies, the paradise lies beneath her feet. The mother. Metaphoric vis-a-vis literal. Did he mean you give up on livelihood and stick to the feet of your mother? Or did he mean care for your mother? Metaphoric vis-a-vis literal meaning. Or in the beautiful hadith, now listen to this. When the Prophet says, peace be with him, ما بين منبري وبيتي روضة من رياض الجنة. Between my